Very closely connected to the concept of equality versus inequality, which is what we were talking about in the last video, is the concept of cooperation versus competition as well. Conservatives like competition, so we're going to put that on their side, whereas liberals prefer cooperation. So I'm going to put that on their side. Competition, of course, is people working against one another towards a specific goal, whereas cooperation is people working together, side by side. In order to explain how competition and inequality are inextricably linked and why I'm therefore putting it on the conservative side, let's think about competitive sports for a moment here. It's clear that although there are many competitors in any sport at any given time, only one of those competitors can ever finish first. And if we're talking about the Olympics, only 3 can ever make the podium. And that means that in any competition, there will only ever be one winner and then a bunch of losers. One person happy and the rest sad, one elated, the rest devastated. In other words, there will be inequality. The competitive nature of sports means that it unavoidably creates inequality, winners and losers. For every person experiencing these emotions, there will be a whole lot more people experiencing these emotions. This is the inequality of sports visualized very vividly right here. Winners and losers, some high, some low, some happy, some sad, some laughing, some crying. Competition unavoidably creates inequality, winners and losers. Now, the liberal really struggles with competition then for 2 major reasons. Firstly, liberals feel compassion for the losers who don't get a medal and they empathize with their sadness. It hurts their heart when they see people in such despair and maybe even breaking down in tears because they finished last. Secondly, because they prioritize equality, they don't like how competition unavoidably creates inequality. They don't like to see some being elevated to glory and happiness and praise and honor while the rest are left behind and excluded. And on a podium, of course, this happens quite literally and very visibly. The winners stand on different elevations to represent their respective positions. The winner's the highest, second place a bit lower, third place a bit lower still. And while these 3 are showered with unequal levels of honor, only the winner gets their national anthem played, the second 2 get their flags but at varying heights. The losers are excluded entirely from the ceremony. They're just completely forgotten about at this stage. Now, the liberal thinks to himself, this isn't what life should be all about. Life should be all about peace and harmony and togetherness and equality. Life shouldn't be about fighting to assert dominance over one another, creating these inequalities and then excluding the people who finished last. Life shouldn't be about the conflict of creating winners and losers, some happy and some sad. Why can't everyone just be a winner? Why can't everyone just agree to be equal and share in the glory? And that way everyone feels happy at the end of the day. Nobody feels sad. And isn't that what's most important at the end of the day? Equality, love, peace, harmony, unity. And of course, these are the most important things to a liberal. So they just want everyone to be equal. This becomes especially pertinent with things like school sports days. That's when it becomes really personal, when it's their kid who is lost and is crying on a heap on the floor, or a kid they know who is feeling unequal and feeling down about themselves because they came last in the race. I couldn't find a video of a school sports day, but here's a kid playing tennis and crying when he loses the match. This is happening on school sports fields all across the world all the time. A kid losing, feeling sad, adults, parents looking on with sympathy and wanting to intervene, wanting to do something to make them feel better about themselves again, wanting to make them feel equal. So liberals in recent years then, this has really bothered them so much that liberal teachers have introduced the idea of participation medals at school sports days. The message, of course, that they want to convey to pupils is that it doesn't matter who finishes first or last. That isn't what life is all about. We're all equal. Everyone is equal. Everyone gets exactly the same prize, no matter how they did. Now, we don't have to agree with that sentiment, but I just want us to understand the motivation behind participation medals and why they're doing it. It's a bid to try and bring equality back into sports. In fact, in more recent times, this has kind of developed a step further, and liberal teachers have sought to remove competitive elements of sports entirely from kids' lives because competition unavoidably creates inequality. The further liberals move into the left trench, the more they try to eliminate competition altogether. So for example, in 2019, the Irish Primary Physical Education Association published a paper that encouraged schools to move away from competitive sports and play instead cooperative games that emphasize participation by all. They love things like parachute games, for example, because it gets kids working together and moving in unison. There are no winners and losers in parachute games. Everyone feels happy, no one feels sad. It's a way to get these kids acting not against one another, but with one another. It's not a bad thing to want unity and equality in life. Again, I think we can understand the liberal motivation here. However, the inequality that competition creates isn't a bad thing either. In fact, in many respects, it's a very, very good thing. Again, whenever we hear this word inequality today, we are just programmed to think, well, that's a bad thing. We have to equalize this. We can't have inequality. We have to intervene and we have to fix and equalize this thing somehow. But in fact, the inequality that competition creates produces so many benefits for individuals and for society that it's impossible to gain in any other way. Competition produces innovation, character development, growth, so many things. To understand this, let's go back to sports again for a moment. Yes, in a field of competitors, there will be winners and there will be losers. And yes, the winners will feel happy and the losers will momentarily feel sad. All that is perfectly true. But after having experienced the pain of disappointment, the pain of losing, isn't it clear that the losers will then be extra motivated to make sure that they come back again and win the next time? They win the next race, the next match. And won't they therefore work harder and be more disciplined in their training to make sure that they don't experience that negative feeling ever again? And won't they seek to innovate and find new ways of elevating their performance? And as they strive for these new heights, won't they unlock new levels of their potential that they didn't even know existed? Furthermore, to bounce back from defeat, won't they need to develop mental fortitude, resilience, and courage to overcome that initial disappointment and try again, just to go back to the start line again? That requires mental fortitude, resilience, courage. And aren't all of these things good? I mean, hard work, discipline, innovation, skill, excellence, unlocking potential, mental fortitude, courage, resilience. Aren't these some of the best qualities, the most vital qualities, not just for sport, but for life in general? We don't get these benefits without competition. These kids are having a great time with their parachute, but these cooperative games don't teach kids how to take knocks and get back up again. They don't teach kids how to take defeat and then develop resilience and courage and mental fortitude or innovation. These are character building traits that you only get through competition. And this is why schools and parents have traditionally always regarded competitive sports as being a vital part of a child's upbringing and of an educational curriculum. It helps to build vital qualities into their character that they're going to need later in life. It's every bit as important as maths and English and science. And their character is never more built, by the way, than when they have to overcome a defeat. It's through losing that we learn the most. Sometimes it's through losing that we develop. Losing even builds self-awareness and humility as we're forced to honestly confront and tackle our weaknesses. The things that we're not so good at, we have to work on them. For all these reasons and much, much more, it has been said that pain is the greatest teacher and the best motivator. As children grow up and enter the world of business, they'll also discover that competition is the foundation of strong economies, technological development and innovation, and even prosperity itself. For example, I'm currently recording this on a Sony camera right now. There are other companies available like Canon, Nikon, Panasonic, Leica, a few other companies. The camera market is worth a finite amount. There's a certain pot of money there that they're all trying to get access to. It's about $7 billion US each year. And if these companies want a good share of that pot of money, they have to constantly try and outdo one another in order to win purchases. They have to try and elevate themselves above the competition to win customers. Now, in practice, this means that each company is constantly trying to devise new technologies and better features, improve the quality of their materials and workmanship, improve customer service, find ways to produce more efficiently so that prices can be kept lower than their rivals. And as camera companies constantly vie in these areas to try and elevate themselves above the competition, the ceiling just gets higher and higher. And customers benefit from that, of course, from this constant stream of better quality goods and services coming to the market. And consequently, civilization itself is advancing through these innovations. Now, do some businesses and therefore some business owners lose by this competition? Of course they do. Some companies will win the majority of the market share, while others will go bust. That's what competition does. It creates winners and losers. But as Abraham Lincoln once said, that some should be rich shows that others may become rich, and hence his encouragement to industry and enterprise. In other words, if you're in a losing position today, but you can see that with some imagination and discipline and hard work and toil, you could reach that position where the winners currently are, you will be driven, you will be encouraged towards innovation and hard work and all of these things that we mentioned earlier on. It reminds me of the opening scene from Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, where a young Indiana is competing with an experienced adventurer to attain an important historical artifact. Indiana Jones ultimately loses that competition, but then he hears these immortal words.
You lost today, kid. But it doesn't mean you have to like it.
In other words, don't give up. Use the pain of this loss as a motivation to do better the next time. Learn, grow, innovate, hone your skills. You never know, next time you might win this thing. Don't give up. You could say the same thing to athletes. You lost today, but you don't have to like it. What are you going to do to make sure that you come back and win the next time, the next match, the next race? Again, this is what competition engenders within human beings. All of these things right here, they're very, very good. And therefore, as well-intentioned as liberals may be with their focus on cooperation and equality and participation trophies, a society devoid of competition will ultimately become a society devoid of these very important qualities. Its people will become devoid of these very important qualities. We simply need competition. Once again, we see the dilemma though. Liberals prioritize one thing and conservatives prioritize another. And it's not that either of those things are bad within themselves. Cooperation is good and competition is good. But it's just that they so happen to look completely different from one another and they're opposed to one another. So which one do you prioritize? Which one is most important? That we gain the benefits of competition and accept that as part of that deal, there will be inequality, there will be winners and losers, and some people will feel sad along the way, or that we prioritize equality, but create a society devoid of resilience, innovation, unlocked potential, humility, hard work, discipline, and other very important character traits. Depending on what side of the divide you lean towards, the answer to that question is going to be perfectly obvious. But as always, the answers will just so happen to be completely different.